Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Gauntlet. I know it's been like 2 weeks since we did a show. So we're just talking about it in the backstage, how this part of the season is like the dead part of the season. But we got a great show tonight, even though we are short-staffed. JJ isn't. I'm not calling anybody out, but JJ is in Houston.
I am.
I think he posted about watching the Super Mario Brothers movie and doing a bunch of random stuff in Houston. So he's taking the night off. Jay is taking the night off. So we got Kyle in the house. We got a new face in the house. Kyle is a part of the Sideline Sports team. He has been helping out our show and a lot of the other shows too. Been just been doing a lot of help for us. So Kyle, you want to just introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about yourself?
So name's Kyle Miller, as James said. I'm happy to be here. I've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I'm happy to finally get in front of the camera, talk about the NFL. I love football. I come from Boston, so New England Patriots. I know that might already get some hate to start about it, but hometown team. I love football ever since as a kid. I played football, so to be able to talk about football, talk about the NFL with you guys, I'm excited to do it. I'm ready to get going, and I'm not gonna lie, I was watching the intro. That intro got me hyped up. Like I was ready before, but now I'm like, okay, let's get to it.
Yeah, this is the real thing, guys. So basically how we start the show every week is we do sports morons of the week, and that's where we look around in the entirety of sports and see the dumbest things, the dumbest moments, quotes, like anything like that. So without further ado, sports moron of the week. That's my favorite clip, man. I was at the NFL draft. Shout out to Kirk, who works with us too. Would not have that without him. And we'll leave it.
That's right. That was during.
Guys,
he was the material that provided that clip.
Doing shows between 2 weeks is kind of killing. It's kind of killing the sports moron thing because there's like 2 times as much to catch up on with the sports moron. So I actually completely lost count of all the sports morons that I had. But there was one that I had to bring this one up. It was a couple days ago. I think it was Dennis Rodman that said,
you took mine.
Is that yours? Okay, well,
Go ahead.
Basically, he said that Larry Bird could not play in the NBA today and that he would basically be in Europe. Like, do you guys know how many players are in the NBA that I'm not going to say they stink or whatever, because if you make it to the league, you make it to the league. So I got to give you some respect. But, I mean, come on, bro. Like, some of the guys that's playing today would not even have a chance. Larry Bird was cooking people. He got bored and started dropping 50 points on people with his left hand. So I just think it's absurd that Dennis Rodman is like saying this crap. Dennis Rodman is supposed to be a legend of the game himself, but yeah, I think that was a terrible take.
That Dennis Rodman take hurts, especially considering he's, played for the team that I'm a fan of. Not sure what he was thinking. It's not the first nor the last dumb thing that Dennis Rodman will say. He may have been drunk. I know he's been an alcoholic in the past. I don't know if he's back on the sauce. Did we talk about Karl Anthony Towns 2 weeks ago?
I'm pretty sure that we had sports moron, and when we brought him up, we were all like, this guy's not even worth wasting our time. But
right, that ever since he said that, like
I forgot everything that he said.
Quote out of my head because whenever we get around to sports,
change the game,
Right.
And he also said that the Timberwolves' run of being a play-in team was more impressive than the Nuggets winning.
Like
Not only
when
that,
we get
that
to
was
our
on-
when we get to the yearly awards, like that's my nomination right now, Karl Anthony Towns.
I just want to say one thing.
Man.
It's crazy. But I want to go back to Larry Bird thing. I'm from Boston. It's unbelievable that he said that. First off, I'm in the hot take. I know I didn't really grow up on Dennis Rodman, so I may get disrespected for this take, but he's a great rebounder. He's a great defender. I understand that. I think him in the Hall of Fame is a stretch. I do believe that. I think it's more because what his legacy was and how well known he was throughout the earth. But Larry Bird averaged 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists against him in his career in 15 games. How can you say that this guy will be a European player if he's giving you buckets day in and day out when you're playing him? If he's someone who barely averages points in Europe, what is Rodman in this scenario? How does he view himself? That's in my opinion of it. I don't get how you can say this guy won't be that good when every night he destroyed you. When he was on the Pistons, it was a bloodbath.
Yeah, so I think we're all in unanimous agreement.
We did end that dynasty, but that wasn't solely due to Dennis Rodman.
Yes, that is true. I'll give you that, the bad boy Pistons. But when you look at that, those teams were great. But I think that's sports moron of the year if I had to pick one.
It's definitely been one of the worst takes of the year so far. But I got another one. I'm going to go to Philly on this one. I forgot about this. But there was Dan Cilio that works with Jakib Sports, and he said that he thinks that Carson Wentz needs to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame. I don't have too much to say about this, but Carson Wentz had one good season with the Eagles, and that was in 2017, the year they won.
3/4 of one good season,
and he got injured, and pretty much after that, even though he had good stats and stuff, let's be real. Like, if you watched the games, you saw that this guy was a declining player pretty much every year after that. And then he just got to the point where he was so bad. And he got traded to the Colts, and then he went to the Commanders, and now he's basically out of the league. So
he's currently unemployed, correct?
I'm upset about Carson Wentz over like the last 3 or 4 years or however long. I've already said enough, so I don't get it. Like, you're just trying to say stuff to get shock value at this point. So Carson Wentz is not in anybody's Hall of Fame, not the Eagles or anyone else's. So that's all I have to say about that.
I wish I could find the post. Somebody put up a post of basically like a depth chart of current available free agents, because like you've got him and Bridgewater at quarterback, which, by the way, they had Teddy Bridgewater ranked ahead of Wentz on the depth chart. Then you had Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, a bunch of wide receivers. Somebody put a post up and they were like, how many games do you think this team wins? And I'm like, maybe 3 or 4, maybe like 7 or 8. I'm surprised. There is a lot of really legitimate talent out there on the free agent market. And I don't know what's going on right now. Like, this is the dead period, but so teams are just waiting. But like, I mean, like, I understand why Zeke's not signed. Dalvin Cook, who we'll get to later. But like, I can't believe someone hasn't snatched up Kareem Hunt yet. He's low mileage. He's still only like 27, and people are so quick to forget. The last time he got RB1 carries as a rookie, he led the league in rushing. And he's a good
long time ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't like that long ago, but about 5 years.
About 5 years. He's still got, I would say he's got more in the tank than Zeke, and he's less injury prone than Dalvin Cook, but I mean, who isn't?
Right. So, guys, do you have anything else to add to Sports Moron before we move on?
Yeah, I got one for Sports Moron. This happened kind of recently. So it's actually Jordan Big Baby Hall. He's a 5-star recruit, defensive tackle. He's originally committed to Florida, but then flipped his recruitment to Georgia. He went on a podcast earlier this week, talked about why he made that decision to go to Georgia. And he said the following quote: Florida talked a lot about nothing, and Georgia talked a lot about something. Georgia's going to put people in the league. Florida hasn't put a defensive lineman in the league since Taven Bryant, and that guy is terrible. Now, I understand you want to go with the NFL. At the end of the day, you're trying to make money. I understand that. Reason why you go to college, get an education, but for a lot of these players, it's to go to prepare yourself, make that next step into the NFL. I understand that completely, but you're a 5-star. Don't get me wrong. 5-star for a reason, but you have not played a snap in college football. I don't get how you can compare someone who's made it to the NFL as terrible. Yes. Did Brian have the best career? No, but he made it. That's something that this guy can't say about himself. So I think it's a little risky right now saying, hey, these guys haven't put anybody, and the ones that they have is terrible when someone hasn't taken a snap in college football yet, let alone the NFL, college football. That's for me. That's why I was like, really, like, I think you got to think more about what you say before you say it.
That's definitely true. That's a terrible take. I mean, even any of the SEC schools that you go to, not even just Georgia. I know Georgia puts a lot of guys in the league, but a lot of schools put guys in the league. So if you get the opportunity to play, then those are the best places to play in the SEC. So, all right, guys. So let's get to some current stuff. Ryan Mallett, totally unexpected news this week. Sad news. He passed away at the age of 35 in a riptide accident. When I was watching the news, I actually heard that in that area where he was at in Florida, they had 11 people who either died or got injured in a riptide accident just within the last 2 weeks. So this stuff is dangerous. This stuff is sad and unexpected. Obviously, you have Ryan Mallett, who was a football coach for a high school team. So honestly, I'm just thinking, if that ever happened to your coach, how would you react? How would you feel? So, thoughts or prayers are with the community over there. But it's just a really sad story about Ryan Mallett and freak accident. So I feel really sorry for his family and everyone, even his teammates. I think Julian Edelman spoke about him. A couple guys spoke about him this week. So really sad news about Ryan Mallett, guys. But this stuff's crazy. It's a crazy world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got some I did a bit of a deep dive on Ryan Mallett. He threw the longest pass completion in Michigan history, a 97-yard touchdown to Mario Manningham. He was actually Chad Henne's backup. Chad Henne got hurt. He came in and got some spot duty, and then he transferred to Arkansas when they hired Rich Rod, because Rich Rod ran the read option, and Ryan Mallett obviously was more of a pro-style quarterback, so he transferred to Arkansas. He was 2-time All-SEC. He holds several records at Arkansas: passing yards in a season, passing yards in a game, passing touchdowns in a game, passing touchdowns in a season. He's basically, I can't think of another one offhand other than Matt Jones, who ended up being a wide receiver for Jacksonville when he got drafted. But Ryan Mallett is far and away the best quarterback in Arkansas Razorbacks history. He got drafted by New England in the 3rd round. He was supposed to be a first-round talent. It was actually the highest that New England had drafted a quarterback since Drew Bledsoe in 93. Ended up being stuck behind some guy named Tom Brady. He then went to Houston, and in the very familiar career arc of one Ryan Fitzpatrick got benched in week 10 in favor of Ryan Mallett. He played 3 or 4 weeks, and then he tore his pec and he was out for the year. Actually, there's, not to speak poorly of the dead, and we're not at all, but Ryan Mallett got a DUI in college. He had some issues in New England, showing up late to practice. Same thing in Houston.
Yeah.
Who am I confused? Because I thought he went to Tennessee. Who am I confusing him?
I'm pretty sure he was
with
New England. He was with Houston.
New England, Houston, and Baltimore.
Baltimore
Briefly. I got him and Jake Locker confused briefly.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty good player. I kind of feel like he didn't necessarily get a fair shake, but it's long story short, you never want to be the other quarterback on a team that has Ryan Fitzpatrick because your job is never safe. It's like, because he also lost out to Brian Hoyer. Oh, that was his other year in Houston. It was a battle in training camp for starting quarterback between him and Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer won the job and then got hurt the first week. So Mallett went in, actually played well. I think they won that game, but it was just a battle back and forth. But you never want to be the other quarterback with Ryan Fitzpatrick because your job is never safe. Because you know damn well,
it's magic.
Sure as you're born and will die, you will both take the job and then lose the job to Ryan Fitzpatrick. We've all seen the meme.
All right, let's get the Patriots perspective. Kyle, talk to me about Mallett.
I remember back when we drafted Mallett, and that was back when, every time you drafted a quarterback and you're a Patriots fan, you're like, is that going to be the guy to replace Brady? Is that going to be the guy? Like, you kept thinking, like, this could be it. You see him get a couple plays in preseason. But, yeah, didn't really work out in New England. But, everyone who said it, everyone said how nice of a guy he is. When you look at Ryan Mallett, you look at it back in Arkansas, he was a gunslinger. He was like the first iteration of those memes where it's like, F it, they're down there somewhere, go throw it down the field. He is one of those guys. And I think the biggest thing for me when I was looking into it after he died, that was one of the things I saw and I was just shocked because, 35 is young, man. It's crazy how it happens. But, he was currently a high school football coach and former teammate, they were saying how it's like he really found his niche. He found his passion and his ability to give back, using it through the game that he loved, the game that he grew up on. That's something that was really special to me when I looked out about it. And it's just a really sad thing. You really feel for the family, that whole community, those high school kids. But it kind of just shows, life is short. So you got to take advantage of anything when you can and just enjoy it every step of the way because you never know what could happen. But prayers up to Ryan Mallett and his family and condolences to that whole community that he coached and everything going through.
Yeah, man, we never know when it's time to go. And just really sad and unexpected news, like I said, about Ryan Mallett. So let's get to some more stuff, man. So we all know all the crazy stuff that's been going on during this whole offseason with all these players getting suspended due to gambling. And some guys are getting suspended because they're betting on actual NFL games, which I think is obviously a problem. Isaiah Rodgers suspended. Rashad Berry suspended. You had Jameson Williams and some other guys with the Detroit Lions. This is just kind of getting a little bit crazy, but I also think there's two sides to it. Obviously, if you're betting on the NFL and you're an NFL player, I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should be smart. I mean, get some money together. You got a lot of money. Get some money together. Get your sister or your brother or get your friend and get a bookie and get them to take care of the business if you really have to make the bet. So that's the first thing. My other thing is this. I don't really think that – I think it's a little bit extreme to start handing out suspensions when you're betting on another sport. Like if I'm betting on soccer or if I'm betting on baseball or if I'm betting on something else and I'm an NFL player, I don't really see why that's such a problem. Even if you do it on a NFL facility, I think it's a little bit extreme what you're doing with suspending guys for gambling on other sports. If you want to gamble on another sport, I don't see the problem. But the NFL is being a little bit extreme with that, in my opinion. So with all the suspensions that's been handed out, hopefully people figure out a smarter way to go about it. Like I was mentioning, if your family or friends or whatever, give them $100 or however much that you're going to bet and let them handle it. And then you collect your winnings and go about your business. So that's my opinion on it. That's how I would handle it. I think the NFL is being a little bit extreme. But yeah, that's my take on everything that's been going on this week.
Well, for one, I can't remember who it was, but a fairly reputable internet publication took a poll of like 100 or so players, and the results came back that 4 out of 5, so 80% of the 100 players that they polled, so 80 guys out of 100 did not understand the ins and outs of the gambling policy, because the way it's supposed to work is like, obviously, like, players don't have their phones while they're sitting on the sideline, but it's like, you can't, if you're in the facility, if you're at, if you're at the stadium, if you're at the practice facility, but it also extends to if you're on the plane, flying out for a road game. It's also apparently if you're in the hotel when you've flown out for a road game, and it's, it's a team function and you are at work. Like, I understand that it's the letter of the law and technically you're at work. I mean, for example, in my small little corner of the world, it's in the employee handbook, no gambling on the clock. Like, we still do it, but they're also not, they're not checking the pin to see, if I was inside those four walls, when I bet Dalvin Cook to be under 60.5 rushing yards, for example. And I've had an issue with, oh no. Okay. I've had an issue with the penalties handed down for gambling on sports going all the way back to Pete Rose, because Pete Rose is the hit king, the all-time hits leader. He never bet against his team. He bet on them. And now that poor man, he will not see the Hall of Fame until he's dead. And I promise both of you, the two of you and Big Baby Jesus as my witness, the year after he dies, I promise you he goes into the Hall of Fame. As far as these suspensions, if these couple, it's been four guys now total that have been suspended for a full season for gambling on the NFL. Apparently they weren't paying attention to what happened with Calvin Ridley. Gambling on anything else, I agree with James. Like, if you're sitting in the locker room after practice and you want to get on FanDuel and gamble on the NBA, I feel like you should be allowed to. And like I said, clearly the NFL has not done a good job of properly informing the players on you should know what you can gamble on and what you can't. But as far as where and when, I've been waiting ever since the first set of suspensions came out. I said, just be patient. There's more coming. And I think there will be more in the future, because at this point, I'm fairly certain that every team, has looked into cell phone records of all their players, and they're looking at the locations. They're like, oh, you have a FanDuel. Let's go ahead and see where you were when you placed those bets. So there will be more suspensions coming. Briefly, I thought that they might lower the amount of games for like Jameson Williams. Really, I was just kind of hoping. But he's got plausible deniability on his side. He's like, oh, I didn't know. And if it's because he was misinformed or underinformed, 6 games seems pretty harsh. But it's the world we live in. And at the end of the day, NFL players are no different than anyone else. Just because you're a professional athlete, why does that mean? I mean, I've placed many bets on FanDuel while on the clock. You know what I mean? But yeah, what do you think, Eric?
I mean, I think with me, when I look at it, I see, first of all, if you're betting on something else, you're betting on something else. I don't think you should be suspended for that. I don't think you should be in trouble for that. But you just got to not bet on the NFL, because you just need to understand how this looks from a perspective. I know that now sports betting is the biggest thing right now. Everybody's doing it. Everyone's like, oh, it's big. You can't bet on the game that you're playing. Like, Isaiah Rodgers bet on a team rushing prop for his own team, the over-under. And when you look at that at first, it seems innocent, but you just can't bet it, because 100 years ago, the World Series was rigged. They set that up. And ever since then, I think the pendulum went all the way the other way, where it's like, okay, betting's not allowed. Betting's a sin, all this. And now over time, it slowly started to swing back with offshore bookies and then daily fantasy. And now all the way back to sports betting is now legal, which I 100% agree with. I think it's smart to bet it. But the players need to understand the optics of a player betting on their own game is disastrous for the NFL.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you see that it doesn't seem legit, you lose so much money. So many people are going to be like, why are we tuning in? I mean, we all say the script jokes. The script jokes are great. I love it. But if it starts to get to a point where it becomes real, then it becomes a major, major problem for the NFL. And just for the Isaiah Rodgers thing, throughout his career, he's made $2.5 million. he was going to make $2.5 million next season before he got the suspension. So double his money he had a chance to, but because he got caught betting, it now all goes away. But the moral of the story is just do not bet on the games that you were supposed to play. There's no need to. You have enough money. There's no need to bet just a little more on it. That's my 2 cents on it. Just don't bet if you're playing. That's just the biggest thing.
Just be smart and get someone else to bet. That's the best way I can put it. So we're going to take a short break here about halfway through the show. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins. Where should these guys end up? Think about it. We'll be right back. The Gauntlet is brought to you by Sideline Sports Network, partners with them. Shows all over Abigail TV and all these other platforms. Make sure you guys check everything out. So, Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins, probably the 2 hottest names that's on the market right now. So, we'll start with Dalvin Cook. Let's all just go around here. What team do you really see Dalvin Cook being on, and like what are some of the best places you think he would be able to thrive at? Dom.
I think the best fit team-wise is Buffalo. At this point, like I'm praying for the continued relative health of Josh Allen, because I swear, if Buffalo doesn't get him a legitimate RB1, like it's starting to remind me of Carson Palmer in Cincinnati. I mean, that's a poverty franchise, period, until recently, but it's like, are they trying to get this guy killed? Like, he's had injury problems in the last couple of years because they not only do they not have a legitimate goal line back, or when they did, they didn't give him the ball, but it's like you're asking him to do too much, and it's almost to the point where he's starting to regress because of all the responsibility you put on his shoulders. Like, why they haven't, like, go get Dalvin Cook, make a trade for Derrick Henry, go sign Zeke, go get Kareem, just get someone that you can hand the ball to 15 times a game, several of them in the red zone. Like, you're going to get this guy killed. So Buffalo, to me, team-wise, makes the most sense. But everything that I hear and have read is Miami. Dalvin Cook is a Florida guy. He went to Florida State. They could definitely use an upgrade at running back. And supposedly that's where he wants to go. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's Buffalo or Miami for me.
Yeah, so I think it's funny when you started off your segment, Dom, you said you were looking at the relative health of Josh Allen. James Cook, brother of Dalvin Cook, also in Buffalo. So I think that would be a really interesting dynamic to see, like, 2 brothers playing with each other. So I just want to throw that out there. Kyle, what do you think?
For me, I think it's one team. I thought about Buffalo. I thought about Miami. That connection, with Miami, that's something that they really need to upgrade their running back situation as well. But when you look at teams that I think are one running back away, I think a team that is the New York Jets. Everyone's talking about New York Jets, how they're ready to go. Aaron Rodgers and that revamped, he brought all the Green Bay guys. Allen Lazard he brought back Randall Cobb. So he's good. I mean, they have a really good defense. Breece Hall is coming back. I'm very high on Breece Hall. When he got hurt last year, he broke my heart. He was on my fantasy team. It was just upset. I had him and Eckler back-to-back. But anyway, Breece Hall is very good, and I do think he's going to bounce back. But if you're the Jets, your window with Aaron Rodgers is very short. And so your plan is to bank on Breece Hall where you don't know if he's going to come back 100%. I think this is where you bring in a guy like Dalvin Cook, who has experience as a lead back. He's done it. So let Breece Hall kind of get his feet wet. Let Breece Hall get in. Once he's good, you can have a 1-1A, and all of a sudden you have one of the best backfields in the entire league. Everyone's talking about how New York is ready to go, and I believe that. They're going to be contending this year, no doubt in my mind. But I think they're one piece away, and I really do think that Dalvin Cook is that one piece.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a great choice too. I think with Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, that would be a really dynamic duo for the New York Jets. And another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, and they got a lot of good weapons over there already. You had the Ohio State
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, who's rookie of the year last year.
Would have been Brees Hall if you didn't get hurt.
Over there. Like the Jets got weapons, man. So I really like the idea of him going there. So I think the AFC East, it seems like the main three teams for him: Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets. I think any of those teams would be a good situation for him. Tyler weighs in and he says he thinks it's the Dolphins. I know it's a popular pick, but he can return to his hometown and still be put in a role and be effective. Yeah, and then I mean, who do the Dolphins really have as their lead running back? So I think Dalvin Cook would be. That's probably his best chance to be like.
Is it still Jay Ajayi?
No, he's been a while.
I know. I'm kidding.
Yeah, currently Raheem Mostert's at the top of it. But
speaking of walking injury.
Think about the Dolphins, though. They got Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. I remember seeing him in college. He's someone who I think is very impressive. But
I like him a lot.
Yeah, obviously
Miami has
Jeff Wilson in Detroit.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson too. They got a pretty good core right there. Obviously,
yes, they have all the oft-injured former San Francisco running backs.
Any of those teams would definitely be a great situation for Dalvin Cook. But let's pivot and let's go to DeAndre. And I know that we talked about DeAndre on one of our shows a couple weeks ago, but for me, the more I think about it, I know everyone says go to Buffalo, go to Kansas City, go to all these different teams where he's going to have a great chance to win. I really like the idea of him going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're going to a place that has a coach with Doug Peterson that's done well in the NFL, has a lot of respect. Players like to play for him. You have Trevor Lawrence, that's a young quarterback that's kind of ascending to that level. Everyone talks about Jalen Hurts and Burrow and Josh Allen and Mahomes and all these great guys, but I think that Trevor is also on his way. And you got a guy like Ridley there, Ridley with Hopkins. I really like that. I really like the weapons they have. Etienne, a great running back. So I really like him going to Jacksonville. And it's an easier division. I mean, you got to deal with the Colts and, the Texans and teams like that. So I think it's an easy road to the playoffs. You get to play with a good coach, and you get to play with a young quarterback that's really ascending. So I really like DeAndre Hopkins in Jacksonville.
I could see Jacksonville. Honestly, I think it's maybe a little bit of overkill unless he's willing to share. Like, don't forget about Christian Kirk. Don't forget that they just re-upped Evan Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, even without DeAndre Hopkins, that offense could be scary. I don't know how good their O-line is. I think it's at least average. Their defense isn't bad. I mean, I could see it. I'm looking at Baltimore, and I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, if he would come down a little bit on his asking price, I would allow him to don the Honolulu blue and silver for a couple of years. I would not be opposed. I mean, as I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but
he's a beast.
He is, but he's also really just a slot guy. Like someone like DeAndre Hopkins could potentially put our offense over the top. However, if we're talking about spending big free agent dollars, I would rather do it on defense. But at the same time, it's like I'm really starting to wonder, what's really going to happen with Jameson Williams, because by the time he comes back, we're going to be 17 plus 6, 20, will be 23 games into his NFL career, and he has one catch and one run for a total of 80, 81, 82 yards. Like, it may take him, he'll be back week 7. It may take him until week 12 to finally be up to speed. And I'll go on record, because I said it when we drafted him, I did not love the pick. I think it was a luxury pick for a rebuilding team. Like, did we get him in a good slot and to move up? I mean, we stole that pick based on what we gave Minnesota, but Jameson Williams has a lot to prove to me personally. So can we afford DeAndre Hopkins? Absolutely, we can. Does he really want to come here? I don't think he does. Somewhere like Chicago would make sense. They could definitely use some better receivers. I know they got DJ Moore, but It's funny.
It was a great pickup for them.
It was, but you also have a quarterback that cannot complete 60% of his throws. Like he's Cam Newton without an MVP or a Super Bowl appearance until further notice.
He's still young though. I'm a big Justin Fields guy. I think he can get it done.
I was rooting for him when I was worried that the Lions might draft CJ Stroud, and I just needed the narrative to be changed about Ohio State quarterbacks. Then once I realized we weren't going to draft Stroud, I was like, oh, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And that's still where I'm at. I'm in retrospect, I'm ashamed of myself for rooting for a quarterback from a division rival.
I think the Bears, that was a team on my list where I was like, okay, because if he's someone, I think he's someone right now who's looking for that next contract. So I think wherever he's going to go, I think he just wants the ball out. Like, I think if he wasn't thinking like that, if he was thinking more longer term, he would look for a team like the Bills and the Chiefs. No problem. But I think right now he wants to get maybe a 1-year deal to get that next contract to be as big as possible. I think a team like the Bears is like that. But I also think, maybe a little bit of a hometown bias, but I got to go with the Patriots on this. I know he's very closely rumored to them for very good reason. Like, the Patriots, as a fan, I admit, they're a very average team right now. Mm-hmm. They're not that good. I mean, mediocre Mac is kind of what I call Mac Jones, but we don't know what he is.
Wow.
We don't know what he is yet. 1 year, he had the first year where he made the Pro Bowl, really good year. Last season, he really struggled. He really did not play that well. He also, granted, he didn't have a real offensive coordinator last year. Now he's got Bill O'Brien. He's got to prove it this year. He has to show that he can be a real starting quarterback for a team that can go far in the playoffs. This is New England. You expect winning. You expect success. Bring in DeAndre Hopkins for 1 year. Have him have that throw where you can get that connection going. See how good Mac Jones is. Because if you can't make it work with DeAndre Hopkins, you're not going to make it work with anybody else. And the wide receiver core isn't great. We just re-upped Devontae Parker. He had a pretty good year last year, but still missing a little bit at that wide receiver edge. If we bring in Hopkins, that takes you to that next level. That means you should be able to compete for that wild card spot. I'm not saying you're going to take out Buffalo. I'm not saying you're going to win the division, but you need to compete for that wild card spot with a guy like Hopkins. So bring him in and see what Mac Jones can do.
Okay, that's a good take. And Tyler says, how about the Carolina Panthers? They just signed Adam Thielen and DJ Chark.
Adam Thielen and DJ Chark, they're all set.
But
that's all you need.
But the best way to kind of get Young's feet wet is surround him with talent. So 1 year, $15 million. That would be a good one too in Carolina. I think they're probably positioned.
Somebody's got to win that trash division.
They're positioned to. They have the cap space, I think. So they could probably afford to throw some money at him. Grizz wants to say the problem is Patriots fans were used to Tom Brady coming out of nowhere the way he did, so they expect every quarterback to do that right off the bat.
That is true, but Mac Jones was the king of the screen pass last year. There was no offense. There wasn't anything that you could see for Mac Jones that you're like, wow, there's a really good player out of here. I think with him is what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. But I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he comes out. I hope he balls out next season because this is it.
He was NFL ready when he came into the league. Unfortunately, his ceiling is so low, he has to duck when he comes in a room.
Exactly. You knew what he was. You knew coming in, he's not bad. He's not great. But now he has that chance to prove to everybody, hey, everyone's calling me mediocre. Everyone's calling me average. Go out and prove it this year. Go out and get us 10 and 11 wins. I'll be happy. I will admit that I'm wrong gladly if he does that.
It's the best way to look at it from a fan perspective. But, guys, Hard Knocks, still undecided. And teams are kind of getting uncomfortable with having all these cameras and stuff in their facilities. They don't know, what's going to end up happening. Hard Knocks showing up to training camp. It can be a distraction. It's not really – I don't really see what's so great about it. And I also don't think a lot of the top teams are going to be interested in doing it. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of times you see all these lousy teams that are on the Hard Knocks. And, I'm not going to watch a documentary about the Indianapolis Colts or some team like that. I mean, Washington. For me as a fan, it's just really not that appealing to me. And as far as the team's feeling that way, I can see it. I mean, it's a distraction to the team. You're in training camp, you're trying to prepare for the season, and you got, all this stuff going on. So I don't really see what's so great about it. So Hard Knocks, just never really been a huge fan.
I love Hard Knocks, and not just because the season last year was the Lions and it was highly entertaining, but I've always enjoyed that show. I think it's definitely lost some of its luster, and you're definitely right. Like, good point about good teams. They don't want to be bothered with the distraction, but very rarely do they ever pick a team that's a good team. It's either an up and coming team or a team with a lot of, mouthpieces, so to speak, or an underachieving team that should be doing better. Like the season that they did the New York Jets with Rex Ryan. That was great because that dude is a mouthpiece. Dan Campbell, bit of a mouthpiece, very quotable dude. Doesn't always say the smartest stuff. And I said it from the beginning, not a great X's and O's guys, but he's definitely got our guys ready to run through a wall. As far as what happens this year, the fact that they've waited so long and haven't announced anything, it's like James said, a lot of teams don't want to be bothered, but I can't imagine it could possibly be anyone other than the Jets. Like, that team has been downtrodden. Now you got Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's a storyline and a half right there.
That would be a great one, the Jets.
Yeah, if it's not the Jets, Hard Knocks, you effed up.
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I watched Hard Knocks last year. I really grew up on Hard Knocks because I love the storylines about it. Who's gonna make it in, because it was a peek behind the curtain that you didn't really see a lot anymore. But now all of a sudden with social media, you see these guys live. You see them all the time. They go live on half these guys go live on Instagram every week. And Hard Knocks, there's a lot of not unnecessary stuff, but there's a lot of fluff because you got to fill out an hour time slot where the best things that you see are a tweet, like the Aiden Hutchinson, the video, him singing Billie Jean. First off, the best thing in Hard Knocks, they peaked. You can't really do better than that. That was amazing. Everyone started singing in. That's one of the best videos that you have, but that's a video that's meant to be tweeted out on social media. There's so much that you see behind the scenes now that is released. There's always cameras filming, so you always see this different type of stuff. So do I think Hard Knocks goes on? Yes, but I think that they really need to alter how they do it, maybe make it a little more shorter, because I think that people tuning in every week for an hour is something that is not really going to happen. And for the end season, if you're not having a team that's making the playoffs, don't do it. Like the Cardinals, the Colts, really, like, I don't really care about
the
I don't care about I'm not going to tune in to see how they feel after the Colts feeling their mindset going into a week 14 performance. Like, I don't care about that. I care about if there's something that's going on. If you switch it week to week, that'll be more interesting. But that's just my thing. I loved Hard Knocks growing up. I kind of lost the love for it because, you see so much more about it. But I totally agree, Dom. If you're going to do it with the Jets. That'll be fun to watch. Aaron Rodgers, that psycho going around. It'll be great to watch.
It's a good point about social media. I think social media killed the NFL Hard Knocks.
Yeah, and Tyler thinks it's going to be the Saints because it's usually under the radar team, but the Jets would obviously be fun. So before we move on and get into it, just on our last segment, I think Riz had a question for you, Kyle. He says, would you rather take Zappe or over Mac Jones right now? Be honest. Putting you on the spot.
Right now, no. But I will admit, when he came in, that was the most electric I felt as a Pats fan probably since Brady.
Was his first start was against Detroit, was it not?
Yeah, but then
he carved us the F up. But
when they benched Mac, when he got hurt during the Bears, when they got blown out by the Bears, and he
was hurt,
drove them right down the field. Like, it was just exciting. It was fun. And that was back when I was like, you know what, whatever, max average, we'll tank. Might as well just tank and get somebody good, get Caleb Williams. But obviously the NFL doesn't really work like that. That's not like the NBA. But right now I think it has to be Mac, but I think it's a competition. I think you can't just say Mac's a starting quarterback because I think Zappe has something. It's just a matter of if it's consistent or not. But I think at the end of the day, is either one the long-term answer? I mean, we'll see, but right now I say no.
How many games did Zappe play last year?
He didn't play much. He only
full
appeared in
games,
games. So
like
it's
2
a
or 3.
very small sample size. Yeah, 3. I think 3 maybe.
Grizz says he wants to see the Cardinals on Hard Knocks because he wants to see coaches telling Kyler Murray to watch film. That's pretty funny.
And then he just hops on Call of Duty.
That's pretty funny. And then he gets on Call of Duty. Yeah. So moving on, the hottest takes for the upcoming NFL season. Okay, this is going to be interesting. But I'm coming after Dom tonight because I just, all the stuff about the Detroit Lions, all the noise and stuff, I just don't think that this is a team that's used to this. They're not used to having the best expectations. In fact, they're used to the majority of the time having the worst expectations. So I think this team is on the up and up, but I just don't really know if they're going to meet that level of expectation. I think they probably still be a playoff team, though, just because you have to look at the NFC
division that
you have to say how many great teams are in the NFC. The Eagles, the 49ers.
That's it.
So the Lions are still going to have a chance, but I don't see the Lions as this juggernaut of a team that a lot of people seem to think that they are. So I'm not really on the Detroit Lions hype train like a lot of people are.
Mine will also be Lions based. I said it probably 3 months before the old men in the desert came out with the over under on wins in the division. Right now it's Lions 9.5, Vikings 8.5, Bears and Packers 7.5. And I said from the beginning, 9 wins and a tiebreaker or 10 wins will take the division. So that's not the hot take. The hot take is, and winning the division, also not a hot take. Hot take is we make the playoffs, obviously, as a division winner. Hopefully we get the tiebreaker over the NFC South, because that'll be either the worst or the second worst division. Obviously, Frisco and probably the Eagles win their divisions with multiple more wins than we do. So what I'm hoping for, not even hoping for, I'm predicting a matchup with the Dallas Cowboys at home where we thereby break our, I can't even do that math, 33-year playoff drought with another trouncing of the Dallas Cowboys at home.
How excited would you be?
That's Dom's.
I'll be there with blue face. There's no other way to end that drought than to just absolutely jail sex the Cowboys.
It's interesting.
You heard it here.
Yeah, I mean, 2 different takes on the Lions. I think they're good. I think that they're going to be a good team. Like, I think they should make the playoffs if all else fails. I think that they're very overhyped right now. I think that everyone talking about them in the Super Bowl, I think, needs to pump the brakes a little bit. Because, I mean, as good as they are, I think
baby steps.
Like this was exactly baby steps.
Let's just win a playoff game.
I think if the Lions win a playoff game, that's progress. And I think that counts as a success. I think after that, you're playing with house money. If they go farther, they go farther. I still believe that Jared Goff is really good. Ross St. Brown is a really good wide receiver. They're a couple pieces away. They're fun to watch. It would be good for the league if a team like this is successful to have a guy like Dan Campbell as a head coach who's insane. But just, you'd love to see him. He's electric to watch. But my prediction, I think that a rookie quarterback will lead their team into the playoffs. I don't know which one yet, but when you look at it, you look at the 4 main guys, you see Bryce Young, you see Stroud, you see Anthony Richardson, and you see Will Levis. 3 of those guys are in the same division. I know that right now Tannehill is a starter, as he should be, but you don't know what happens. He gets hurt, Levis takes over, and all of a sudden all those guys are fighting to take out the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they're really good. They should win the division, no doubt in my mind. But all it takes is a sprained ankle. He's out for 5 or 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden they're back. They got to fight into the wild card. So one of those teams could easily slot in. And I think Young has the best chance. I think if he plays very well, that division is wide open. I mean, wide open.
It is.
There's no one team that you could really say for sure they are the best team in this division. And I think that they loaded up. I mean, they're under the radar. They got Miles Sanders. They got Adam Thielen. I know that it's not the best pickups. There's nothing that you're really going to be like, oh, my God, we got this guy. But in a division that's wide open, you could take those steps. They taught Hayden Hurst too. They got a lot of guys who can make plays, and they could be better than average. And better than average means you can win a division, And
I mention somebody's got to win that trash division?
Exactly. Somebody's got to do it. So if Bryce Young comes out and plays well, there's a scenario where they make the playoffs. And I think one quarterback will get it. I'd be surprised if it's not, honestly, because when you look, the AFC South situation too, and mixed with that, just Bryce Young and the Panthers. That
Pop
you guys gotta win the division, bro.
Exactly.
Who amongst us can name Jacksonville's backup? Let's say Sunshine goes down. Who's their backup? Do you know? I looked it
I
up.
don't even know.
I think it might be the mascot, if anybody. I don't even know.
It's CJ Beathard.
Yeah,
third string is some dude named Nathan Rourke. Oh, another reason that D-Hop, you forgot about Zay Jones.
Exactly. I mean, they got a lot. They're stacked, but if he goes down, that season's done, And obviously, you don't wish that on anybody. But even if he goes down like 6 to 8 weeks, you're out of the division. You got to fight for the wild card at that point. So I think that's my hot take. I think it'd be surprising if it doesn't happen. I really believe it.
Fair enough, man. So that's our hot takes for the NFL season. Coming up to the end of the show where we go outside of the realm of the sports talk and we talk about all different sorts of stuff. So this week, 4th of July weekend. Happy 4th of July. I'm going to watch some fireworks. Going to go to the barbecue. Going to have a good time. Let's talk about some American movies. Like, what are some of the greatest American movies for you guys?
I didn't know what you meant when you said American movies.
I guess you can define it however you want.
I can take this one. I think for me, the way I wrote it out, the way I did is that, like, when you think of USA, when you think of just patriotic pride, what do you think of when you think of it? I mean, for me, like, the first one that came to my mind is Rocky IV. I think it's the epitome of just, like, the Americans going against the Russians. I must break you. Like, that movie is just the epitome of just, like, American hard work and grit. Gets it done over anything else. I love that movie. That's honestly maybe my favorite of the Rocky and Creed movies altogether. Mm-hmm. That's one that leaps out for me. I mean, I think Top Gun is one that is just like, it's the epitome of just like, American, go America, go everything else. Jaws is more of a 4th of July movie, like a classic one. And then for me, I had to throw in Captain America, First Avenger. I don't know how you can't throw that in. It's America in the name. But those are my picks. I think when you think of, like, United States, like, you just think of that patriotism, these are the movies that kind of come to my mind when I see.
Me or you, sir?
You got it, Tyler says he's going to go with Joe Dirt on this.
That's a great pick.
You got my Hemi back? Dang! The first one that came to my mind, like, it starts out very patriotic, but the last 2/3 of the movie, I would say, paint a very different picture. I'm hoping at least one of you saw it. It's Tom Cruise. It's Born on the 4th of July, and it's a 95% true story about a Vietnam vet named Ron Kovacs. He was disabled as a result of the war. He comes home and he's got, like, PTSD, and, like, he's in and out of the VA, and he actually, like, he started out, like, it's a dude from Massapequa, New York, and he's like pro-America, pro-war, so he signs up to go to war. He gets, like, halfway blown up, like, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if he was definitely paralyzed. I think his legs got blown off. And as time goes on, he actually becomes a staunch, what's the opposite of supporter? He becomes an anti-war dude. I think he's still alive. He's written some books. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a good movie. Willem Dafoe is in it as well. Definitely a very good movie. And then how can you leave out American Pie? You can't.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. How did I forget that?
So I think that's the only movie I've ever seen in the theater twice, like, during its original run.
Shout out to Stifler's mom.
I know.
All right. You guys had some great picks. I was definitely going to pick Rocky. Just as a Philadelphia guy. Like, you gotta love that story of grit and determination and hard work. And
The first one?
I think I would just say like the whole series as a whole, like all the movies, I could just sit and watch all of them. And Sylvester Stallone is the man, so you gotta love him. You gotta love him. He did a great job in that role. And I think another one is The Godfather. It's just a great story, and you can't really find a person that's seen The Godfather and it's like, this movie's not a masterpiece. You know what I mean? So I think those are the two picks that I'm going to go with there: The Godfather and Rocky series, probably as a whole.
He wrote and directed the first Rocky movie. I mean, I'm pretty sure he directed all of them. The first one was an Oscar nominee. I never saw the first Rocky until I was probably like 10 years old. I'm pretty sure I saw Rocky 4 in the theater. I'm that old. Saw Rocky 4 in the theater old. In the 80s. Pretty sure before either of you were born. But different story for a different time.
You would be correct.
Correct for me.
What's on your shirt, Kyle? I've been looking at it the whole time trying to read it.
Can't really see the full, but Malice at the Palace.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
I was going to say, Detroit fan. One of
out.
my favorite documentary on it, I think on Netflix. One of my
Yes.
stories of it. Because like at first
I was actually living in Florida when that happened. I was in an Applebee's watching that game on mute on an old crappy like glass TV. The picture was bad. It was muted, but I was watching it live and I stood up and I'm like, turn the big TVs on TNT or ESPN or whatever it was on. Like I watched that live.
After that documentary, I didn't realize how big it was because I was barely alive for when it happened. But then like you read and like when you think about it, you're like, oh, it's just a fight that happened. There's fights, there's scuffles, but like it went down to the stands. And I'm watching this thing and I'm like, oh my God, it destroyed the Pacers franchise, being completely honest. They were I didn't realize how many players they had. They were a really good team. Honestly, the Pistons too. I mean, I know they won the title in 2004, but like that's a black mark on the NBA. It's crazy about everything that happened with it. It's one of my favorite documentaries. I'm like, I gotta get the shirt. I have to represent.
That's dope.
I would love
I was looking at that the whole time and I'm like, Malice, what? And then you held it up and I was like,
as soon as I saw the face, I was like,
I would love to see Malice in the Palace happen today.
I would just
no,
love
you wouldn't.
It will never happen because you have all these players in the NBA now that
the next game against the Pacers at home the next year, everyone was.
He did it. He said it, and then like the fans are getting kicked out of the game. So
it's all
But back in the day, man,
yes, thank you, LeBron.
Like Ron Artest is not a dude that I would mess with at all.
No.
Ron Artest used to walk out the locker room, out the stadium, down the street to the liquor store and purchase Hennessy at halftime and drink it on the way back and then go back in the game.
Hennessy in the Gatorade cups on the sideline.
It's crazy to me too because it's like if you're a fan and you're going down there and you're looking at like these players that you're going up against, like Ron Artest, all these guys, and you're like, yeah, I think I could take them. Just insane.
Yeah, you gotta be a psycho.
Adrenaline rush that's going through you, like. And there's no way you come out a winner in that debate. Like, there's no way you can be like, oh, I was doing the right thing.
No one wins. Like,
exactly.
If you're a fan, you can't fight the players. If you're a player, you cannot fight the fans.
Yeah, there's no winners in that situation.
Yeah. So I think that's going to wrap us up for the night, guys. So, Kyle, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
If you just want to let everyone know where they can follow you or find you, what kind of stuff that you do or you write or you make, be sure to let everyone know before we get on.
Yeah. So right now, I'm doing a lot of work with Sideline Sports. If you're a fan of college football, follow me, Kyle_Miller PXP. We're starting to do a little cool stuff with college football there. Be sure to watch out. But guys, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast of an hour.
All right, guys. So we'll see you back here on the Gauntlet next week. Tyler was in the comments tonight. Tyler's going to be on that show. So be ready for that one. With that being said, guys, we'll see you next week.